Xiuhtezcatl Martinez is a 21-year-old climate activist and hip-hop artist. He has been on the front lines of the environmental movement since the young age of 6 years old. His beliefs are largely influenced by his indigenous Aztec heritage. Martinez's father has always told him that people are connected to the land. This mindset has prevailed through Martinez's life as he went on to raise awareness about pressing climate issues, trying to convince others, especially youth, to care about and take action to preserve the rapidly deteriorating environment. Martinez is the youth director of Earth Guardians, an organization that strives to inspire youth to be leaders in the climate and social justice movement through art, music, civic engagement, and legal action. He has given TED Talks on environmental activism to bring attention to the specific issues facing his local community. He has spoken at the UN conference, boldly calling for action and demanding change to ensure the future for the young generation. But what differentiates Martinez from other youth climate activists? First are his goals and focuses. Xiuhtezcatl Martinez strongly states that the earth doesn't need saving, we do. He emphasizes the communities and people who will be affected by the impacts of global warming. The main part of his activism is the intersectionality of environment. Unlike other climate leaders, he doesn't treat the climate crisis as one that purely affects the environment. Instead, he makes it personal by treating it as a human rights issue. Martinez is vocal about how climate change is most devastating to indigenous communities and impoverished communities. Since the majority of low-income communities consist of people of color, climate justice becomes a race issue as well as a class issue. Many people feel disconnected from the fight against climate change, since they are not directly affected by it and its repercussions aren't as visible as other issues. However, by focusing on the specific individuals whose lives are threatened by global warming, Martinez appeals to people's empathy and makes the problem seem more urgent. If people consider the issue as one that directly affects their community or others around them, rather than a vague threat to the climate, they are more compelled to join the movement and make a change. Secondly, Martinez stands out from other activists through his music. Martinez makes hip hop music that relates to social issues that he is passionate about. His art makes world issues comprehensible and palatable to young people. Expressing his views through music makes him unique against other climate activists, because this creative outlet attracts people who are not usually engaged in socio-political affairs. By appealing to a wider and more unusual audience, Martinez is expanding the environmentalist movement to include people who were previously unaware of such issues. His hip-hop music certainly makes him a standout figure in the climate justice movement because he is utilizing different and distinct platforms and mediums to spread the message about the environment. The third and most important aspect of Martinez's activism is his initiative to take legal action. Martinez is the lead plaintiff in the court case Martinez versus Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. This case began in 2013 when Martinez and a group of youth activists sued the COGCC for the harm that their drilling practices have imposed on the local community. Ultimately, the Colorado Supreme Court ruled in favor of the COGCC, but this court case creates the discussion of implementing legislation to mitigate environmental effects to protect the public. Martinez is also involved in the Supreme Court case Juliana versus the United States, in which 21 youth plaintiffs sued the United States federal government for failing to protect the rights of life, liberty, and property for youth by creating or endorsing corporations that emit massive amounts of fossil fuels, which is the main driver of global warming. This case is still ongoing, but its influence is evident. Even if the Supreme Court does not take the side of the youth activists, they are still fostering the discussion of how the consequences of climate change will impact future generations, which will inevitably lead to policy changes. If the Supreme Court does rule in the favor of the youth, the federal government will be forced to gradually withdraw their support for oil and fracking industries and focus its attention on ecological preservation. Martinez is a frontline leader of the climate movement, and his legal action will spark direct legal changes, not only by placing pressure on older policymakers, but by also inspiring younger people to make a difference now and in the future when we will take over as the decision makers.